Right, well, we're back for Zwift 86. We're going to be doing stage 4 Zwift Unlocked, which is called Spinfinity. Here it is here. You can see that it's a new route that we all probably know if we're doing the route, taking in the Brooklyn Bridge KOM and the Manhattan Sprint, as well as the Times Square Reverse. Probably a course that's going to suit me a little bit more than stage 1, 2 and 3 because there's less inclines in it, so I was pleased about that. I'm a few days later than some of the other videos that I've released recently. I've been away for a couple of days, which has been lovely. So this is the Wednesday night ride at 6:15. We had 167 entrants, but 135 started the race at a relatively long lead in, but we all bunched up. It didn't seem to be massively powered up with loads of people pushing really hard. I felt as though I was in a quite comfortable position. If you've watched some of the recent videos, cadence has been the thing that we're looking to improve on, so you can see that I'm up close to 80, and that was my focus point for this race with a long lead in. But you can see that we're off and running now. 139 riders here pushing hard, and there's a couple of inclines as we go around these 3 right hand turns, slight rises, but we've already manoeuvred past one and I'm up with the lead group. With us having over 100 riders, it's difficult to identify how many riders are behind you because it just shows 100 riders, so it's probably showing from 0 to 100th position. You can see I'm currently in 70th position, so not sure whether the rest of the group are with us at this point, but I just wanted to make sure that I could stay with the riders at the front. So keeping that cadence up, it's around 75 at the moment, but most of those initial inclines have been negotiated. We can see that we're all stretched out at this point, and as we continue through some of these turns, you can see that I start to get distance, which is a bit of a worry. There's a big group of around 70 riders out in front, and then it's just strung out into single file for a couple of other riders, but you can see that I eventually pull it back in and join the rest of this lead group. We're only 2.2 kilometres into the race. I completely forget that I've got a drafting boost there as we come up close to the first point where I can get another power up, but I do manage to just pop it just as we come over the banner. But plenty of flat along this initial first few kilometres, and then just wanting to settle in. I'd done a recce because I'd been away, and I would have normally ridden the race on the Monday night. I did a recce, well, I say I did a recce, I watched somebody else's video of the race and had a strategy in my head, which was that if I could stay with the lead groups over the second bridge, then potentially I would be in a good position to stay with the leaders all the way to the finish line. So that was my plan. I felt as though that even if I bust a gut trying to stay with the leaders, going up those 2 bridges, at least my weight of 92 kilograms would help me on the descents down towards the finish line. So that was my plan. I was going to put in absolutely everything into the 2 inclines on the bridges and hopefully be able to stay with us. So this is all a new circuit, the biggest expansion to Zwift in 4 years apparently, I believe, with plenty of other courses and routes in the New York area. So just dropping down into the subway, there's been a lot of talk about the subway and that 19 degree descent and then incline on the other side, so we'll come up to that on the other side, and just making sure that I can stay with the rest of these riders. And recently my efforts have been to put in as much power as possible, but for a change I was able to think about the strategy of the race and think about how I just needed to ease off from time to time and just keep in the draft of the other riders. So average watts is 230 at the moment. I've been averaging in the races around the 240 mark in the last few races that I've taken part in. Here's the 19% incline. People are suggesting that it is assisted on the power up as you go over the other side. I'm not too sure. It's quite sharp and short and punchy, so you're able to manoeuvre it quite quick. It does separate the group slightly though, and you can see we're slightly more strung out than we have been as after we've come up onto the other side. But fortunately we'll drop back down the descent before we start to head up over the first bridge, which is going to be the main talking point of the race from the point of view of that's where the group's going to split. You can see in the mini map on the right hand side we're all very spread out. Here's the profile that you can see in the centre of the map, and I felt quite good going up it. The Brooklyn Bridge KOM that you can see on the left hand side, 2 kilometres at a percentage of 1.7, is quite deceiving because you need to be aware that it takes into consideration a descent first of all. So from the bottom where you've seen the coloured profiles in the centre of the map, we're heading up at a higher percentage than the 1.7 that it's suggesting, and it's up around the 4 and the 3 all the way up over the top. But you can see that with me being in the top 10 or close to a top 10 position, I was feeling really comfortable, keeping an eye on where the top was because I was putting a huge amount of effort. There is still no development on the heart monitor. I don't know where it is in the house. I've looked again today, still can't find the heart monitor. I've even looked in the bins, but I can't find it in the bins, so I don't know what I've done with it and where it's gone. So potentially, as it's a beneficial aid to riding in the race, I'll be looking to buy another heart monitor in the coming days, just so I can sort everything out. But this was the point where I was starting to struggle now, and starting to potentially get separated from the riders around me. You can see I'm in 30th position. Somebody's made a right push off the front, so that was an interesting break that somebody's made on the ascent up to the top. But eventually I got there, but you can see I'm really struggling. Obviously my heart rate isn't recorded, but my heart was pounding at this point, and I did think that potentially I was going to get separated. I was benefited slightly by a few riders coming past me on the descent, so I stuck in with the riders around me. I was putting in more effort than I wanted to on the descent. I was hoping that I would be in and amongst the other riders and just being able to draft, but what I found is that I had to keep putting the power down to stay with the riders around me, and eventually that little gap that you could see appear just starts to come back together at this point, just over halfway through the race. So really pleased that I've been able to stay with them. Mission accomplished so far over the first bridge, and then hoping that on the second bridge I'll also be able to stay with the group. The second bridge isn't as long and isn't as steep, so hoping that I'll be able to stay with the rest of the riders. But you can see that we are very much strung out, and if my position in the race drops slightly, we'll be able to see what sort of gap we have between the front group and the riders around us, as well as seeing how many riders are in this front group. So let's just keep an eye on that as we go over this second bridge. That rider who's out in front, you can see that we've started to pull it back to him. There's 2 riders out there, one on a pink Tron bike, and I can't tell what the other one's riding, but it's certainly not a Tron bike. So I'm in 19th position, and let's drop back down a few places. 23rd, no, still can't tell how many's in this front group, so there's at least 30 riders in this front group, if not a few more than 30. We're coming up close to the top now, and from time to time you can see just there I popped up to 400 watts, and that's because I was up out the saddle just making sure I could stay with this front group, because that was what I needed to do, and then hopefully be able to just ease off coming back down this descent, because there was plenty of downhill before we entered the subway section again. So 33rd position, there we go. There's about another 4 riders behind me, so we're around about 37-38 riders in this front group, and I'm one of them, so that's really, really pleasing. We're in a category 210 to 330. I've got a Zwift racing score of 324. I jumped on and did stage 3 for the 3rd time. I did record it, but I didn't make a video of it. It wasn't a spectacular time, but I wanted to have a ride before I went away Monday dinner time. So I did the stage 3, and I think it was about a minute and a half slower than I had done previously when I raced it earlier on in the week, last week. So yeah, 36th position I am, with about 3 riders behind me. You can see though that there's a couple of riders right out in front. I'm not actually sure when those 2 riders made a break for it. You can see that one is Jay Frank is just 2 seconds ahead, and then there's a rider 13 seconds ahead of that, and if I'm able to jump a few more positions in the race, I'd be able to tell you who that rider is. There it is, Fritzner. Jay Fritzner is the rider out in front, so keep an eye on that name, see how he gets on towards the end of the race. So drop back down to 19%. You can see that there's 2 riders who look as though they're going to start riding together out in front, and we've only got 5 kilometres to go. We've got the flatter section through the subway, then we've got the 19% incline on the other end of the subway, then we've got those shall I go for right hand bends? I think they're right hand bends. Yeah, right hand bend. We've got those 3 right hand bends towards the finish that have a few little mini sections of inclines, but feeling relatively good here. Average watts is at 239, so that's stayed steady, so pleased with how that's getting on. And again, if I'm able to, and I'm not sure whether I do, if I'm able to go through a few positions in the race, we'll be able to see what the gap is to those 2 riders out in front. Is the 19%, and what it does is actually recording your average watts as you go through that section, so that might pop up on the left hand side shortly. It did before I saw it and was intrigued, because normally you're looking at timed sections in the race for the KOMs, etc., but this one was a watts that were produced. So here I am back in 33rd position. Again, still around about 3 or 4 riders behind me. Here's those bends that are predominantly right hand bends. There's 1 left hand bend coming up in 2 turns time, but I'm still with the rest of the group, and we've got 3 kilometres to go. So although I'm thinking, yeah, this is a real success, I do think back to stage 3 where I was still with the leaders with 1.4 kilometres to go before we went up the Skids summit towards the finish line, and just got completely left. On the first occasion got dropped by a minute and 28 seconds by the time I got to the finish line. So here's those right hand bends, but you can see that I'm quite stretched and the group's quite stretched, and I'm back in 34th position with only a handful of riders behind me. And it's at this point where, from being single file, you can see that there's a gap appeared in front of me, and I've got nothing left in my legs at this point. You can see that the next 6 riders ahead of me roughly are all trying to catch hold of the group in front. There's 1 rider out in front, Karsten, and then 3 riders who look as though, yeah, they've bridged the front group. So I'm hoping that these riders who've just gone past me will help me bridge. And at this point we are now on the descent, so it's going to be harder. I do push out in front of the group of 4 that I'm riding with in an attempt to think that I might be able to catch them, because the gap was 2 seconds and now it's opened up to 3. But what I'm not got in my favour now is the drafting that they've got, with them being a group of around about 30 riders. So I'm still working quite hard. You can see the average watts has now gone up to 242 when it was 237 just about a minute or two further back, but you can see that they're going off into the distance, and the 2 second gap has now gone up to 8 seconds, and we are within the last kilometre of the race. But rather than easing off, I'm going to push and lead the 4 riders, or the 3 riders and myself, across the finish line. So we still can't see them, but they are right on my tail. Here comes one rider, Boyce, who just pops across on my shoulder, but I'm powering up, not putting a sprint in, but just keeping my watts really high. And there we go, finish in 33rd position. I unlock stage 4, and then also obviously complete the route. So here's the top 10 positions coming up. First place, we've got T. Schneider, who finished in 30 minutes and 45 seconds, and then look at the gaps between them. Back to 10th position was only separated by 1.67 seconds. So second place we've got Jour de Ruyter. Third place we've got Wes Slowheifer. Fourth we've got Mark Davis. Fifth we've got Ulrich Severinsen. Then we've got 6th place, we've got Dave Higgins. Diego Diaz was 7th. Julian Frank was 8th. Then we've got Lawrence de Crane in 9th. And then finally in 10th position, Andrew Simister. So relatively pleased with how I got on. I think I was 23 seconds behind the leader. I ended up finishing in 31 minutes and 9 seconds, and I just had to, admit defeat within the last kilometre or so, but did manage to hit 242 average watts, which is giving me 2.6 watts, so relatively pleased with it. I will try and ride again before next week's race. That might well be Friday, but certainly looking to join Monday and the mass ranks that will hopefully be riding stage 5 to complete the series. I'm not sure the profile at the moment, but I'm sure that it's quite similar to stage 4 with not as much incline, so that will hopefully suit me again, and hopefully I can stay with some of the rest of these riders and finish with the front pack and have an even more commendable finish than 33rd position. So yeah, there we go. My ZRS is now up 2 more to 326, so I'm very close to going over the 330, which is not something I particularly want to do, but I'll have to embrace it if it happens. But yeah, let's see what happens. So please subscribe. In other news, the Zwift Racing League, I've bombed my team, my own team that I've produced due to a lack of interest, so I'll be looking to join somebody else's group and probably ride on Tuesday night in the Lime League, which is around 6 o'clock. I'm still looking for a group. I've attempted to link in with 2 teams so far, but I'm sure I'll get a team before next Tuesday, which is when the Lime League will take place. So please subscribe. Numbers are really good at the moment. One of the videos that I recently produced has had 1,300 hits. So catch you all again soon. Bye bye.